Hello YouTube, you're tuned in for another episode of Tag Out and Drag Out Sporting Good Reviews. Today, I'm going to be answering a question from one of my subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I've asked, when regards to elk and moose hunting, what caliber do I use and why do I use that caliber? So as you can see in front of me here, I've just laid out a few of the shells that I use myself for hunting. I certainly don't use all of these for elk and moose hunting. This is the 300 Win Mag, a 308, a 6.5 Creedmoor, and a 6mm arc. Now the reason why I have these is they do cover kind of a normal range of a lot of shooters and hunters do use. Now this debate has been going on for many years, and I don't profess to be able to answer it for absolutely everyone, but I can talk from my experience and what I've seen out in the field hunting. So really, to decide on what is the best caliber for you to be using for hunting such large game is, first off, what range are you going to be shooting the animals at? So, it's one thing if you're going to be shooting the animal at 100 yards, or if you're going to be shooting the animal at, say, 500 yards. That will impact which caliber that you'll be using, because some calibers are capable of shooting 500 and some are not really capable of shooting 500 and properly expanding. And that's where I wanted to go next is, what type of shots will you take when you're out hunting? Will you take only broadside shots where you can get a clear shot at the vitals? Will you take a front shot where you're maybe having to punch through some bones or things like that to get to the vitals? And then, the other part is, what bullet do you use in particular? Are you using a copper bullet, or are you using more of a fragmenting bullet? Myself, I would highly recommend to not use something that's just going to fragment right away, because that won't take down such a large game. It'll hurt them, and maybe eventually they will die, but it won't be a quick death, which is what you're wanting when you're hunting. You want to be humane and treat the animals with respect. So back to the calibers that I have here. Now with the 300 Win Mag, as you can see, it's quite a large shell. There is some benefits to having this and some drawbacks to having this. So it has a great deal of powder, and you can use quite large shells. So when you're shooting it, it has a lot of velocity and it will expand, out to significant range. Whereas the next one beside it here, the 308, shoots the identical same size of bullet, but the powder that's shooting it is significantly reduced, as you can see. And then next to it is a 6.5 Creedmoor, which you can see carries very similar powder capacity to a 308. And then there's a 6mm arc, which has substantially less than any of the others. So some people think that, I can use a 243 and hunt elk. And I'm not going to say that a 243 won't kill an elk or a moose. It can, provided you do it properly. So if you're having a clear shot to the vitals in a proper range that the bolt will expand, you might be able to take the moose or elk. But many hunters, you get a little bit excited when you're out in the field. You finally see the animal that you've wanted for many years. You might have been waiting for 5, 10, 15 years to be able to go out and hunt a moose or an elk. So you might take shots that you might normally not take when you're out hunting deer. And so that's why I tend to go a little bit on the heavier side of things and not on the light end of things. Like, there is advantages to shooting a smaller shell, as you're generally more accurate, there's less recoil, and people are generally have more practice on the lighter calibers because they're pleasant to shoot, and you can shoot large quantities of those shells at the range. The larger calibers, like the 300 Win Mag, well, it's not one that people generally take out to the range and shoot round after round because their shoulders can't take it. Another factor in this is, if you're a new hunter or a new shooter or someone that has been shooting for a while, someone that's new to hunting, a significant amount of recoil can be quite intimidating. Whereas when you've been shooting for a while, you get used to recoil and you can react to it a little bit differently. So I said about a 243. Now what about things like a 6.5? So I have a 6.5 Creedmoor, there'd be things like a 264 Win Mag, there'd be a 6.5 PRC. Will those kill an elk or a moose? Absolutely they will, but I don't really recommend those calibers because the bullet doesn't have a giant hole when it's hitting the animal. Yes, it can certainly take them down, but you need to have very good shot placement. Myself, I like to recommend going with some sort of 7mm or 30 caliber type bullet when you're hunting moose and elk, because you're wanting to have a significant wound channel. You might be punching through, a lot of bone, some muscle, a lot of flesh. It's one thing hitting a 200-300 pound animal, and it's a totally different thing when you're shooting, a 700 pound animal. You're wanting to take it down quickly and cleanly. You aren't wanting it to run off and you have to track it for miles on end. You may not have permission to be in that land, so you want it to fall close to, where you shoot it. And that's another thing is, you hit the animal once. Well, if it doesn't drop, you need to keep shooting until the animal drops. So if you have to take 2 or 3 shots, that's what you need to do. You want to be humane when you're out hunting. So I haven't really said, calibers in specific, other than I said 7mm to 30 caliber. Well, there's quite a wide range in those shells. The smallest I would recommend is a 7mm 08, and really anything from there, a 280, a 280 AI, a 300 Win Mag, a 308, a 30-06. Shells like that, calibers like that are all very moose and elk capable. But you still can't just take wild shots and think that you can go through anything. You still have to try to get to the vitals, and broadside shots are always the shots that I recommend. And I've passed on many shots when I've been out in the field hunting. And that's something that you tend to do once you get a bit more experience is you know what the caliber you have is capable of, what shots you can make, what shots you're not really comfortable making, and what you're going to effectively and humanely take an animal with. So hopefully that helps you with that question. If you have further questions on this topic or anything hunting related, please feel free to comment. If you like the content of my videos, please like, share, and subscribe. Happy hunting.